For the last 20 minutes,
Okay.
you are the man behind of the success of President Macron. Is it true?
It's a complicated story, so let's talk about it.
The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. So hello again, I guess. I'm very sorry you have to hear French accent for the last
Thanks a
part
lot,
of the
sir.
day. So I hope that will be okay. So I'm Guillaume Liegey. I run a company, a technology company that develops tools to understand and influence public opinion, notably, and we've worked for different type of clients, political parties, unions, and corporations. Just to give you an idea of, I don't think that's working. Can someone check this? Can you check this? Our moderator mentioned that we worked for Emmanuel Macron's campaign. That is true. But we've worked for over 1,000 campaigns in 6 European countries. And I have to say that it is true that Emmanuel Macron won the election, but many of our clients have lost their elections. And what I want to talk to you about today is not about a magic sauce to...
Excuse me?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I run a tech company, but I don't understand technology, so I'm very sorry about this. I'll start again. So, as I said, my company has worked with over 1,000 campaigns in 6 European countries, and actually in France last year, but in Germany as well. We worked with some candidates for the federal election. So what I'd like to talk about now is not about the magic sauce that will make everybody wins an election, but how political campaigns have changed under the influence of data and technology. And for this, I would like to take you 10 years back in the past, in 2008, when I was at the time a student in the United States at Harvard University. And I was very interested in politics, but I had no campaign experience at all. And at the time, this guy was running his campaign. And on Harvard's campus, everyone was wearing Yes We Can t-shirts. So if you're interested in politics, it's very hard to resist trying to join this campaign. But I had no connection at all with the US Democratic Party. So what I did is I went to a class and I saw a guy with a Yes We Can t-shirt and I said, hello. At the time I had a very strong French accent. So, hello, I am Guillaume. How do I do to join the campaign? And he looked at me and said, dude, go to the website. So I went to the website. I went to myBarackObama.com. And I left my name, my zip code, my phone number, and my email address. And literally, 3 hours after this, a real person, someone from the Obama campaign that was living in my neighborhood, gave me a call and asked me, Guillaume, would you like to come knock at doors in New Hampshire this weekend? And, knocking at doors, this doesn't really sound 21st century campaigns to me. But I didn't want to do the French guy who says no to everything, so I said yes, and I joined them. So they gave me an appointment on a Saturday morning in front of a Whole Foods parking lot. And then I met a group of people led by a local Obama organizer named John. And he said, hey, Guillaume, welcome. And so he told me we're going to New Hampshire and we're going to knock at doors. And on the way to New Hampshire, we drove an hour and a half to a city named Manchester. They told me, Guillaume, you're French, right? And I said, yes, of course. And he said, well, one piece of advice. If you knock at doors in New Hampshire, not sure they like French people because, of the Iraq war, because your country didn't want to help George Bush go to Iraq, so they don't really like French people. So if people ask, say you're Dutch. I'm tall, so it works, Dutch people. And new people in New Hampshire, they can't distinguish between French and Dutch accent. So, we drove, and then we arrived in Manchester, and we went to a very specific neighborhood. Not anywhere. They chose a very specific neighborhood, and then they organized the volunteers in pairs. And we went knocking on doors for 2 hours. And it went really well. It was an amazing experience for me. Nobody asked about my accent or anything. It was really smooth. But on the way back, I asked John about, why do we knock at doors? I mean, I thought it was all about Facebook and Twitter in 2008. And why did you choose this very specific neighborhood? And that's when I learned something that is at the core of what my company does today. And it's the fact that modern campaigns are about three things: data, technology, and human. The data part is obvious. When you're running a campaign, you have to choose exactly where you're going to go because you cannot talk to everyone. So you have to choose who are your target voters, and you have to find out where they live. Technology, because technology makes it amazingly easy to organize a large-scale field campaign. It made possible for a French guy like me, who had no connection to US politics, to join Obama's campaign in 3 hours. So that's the magic of technology. It scales up campaigns. And human, well, that's the interesting part. Because in my view, the best campaigns were about using Facebook and Twitter wisely, social media. But actually, 20 years ago now, science came into the campaigning field. In the United States, 20 years ago, campaigning has become a science. Two scientists from Yale University, they wanted to find out what really works in a campaign, what works to change someone's mind, what works to gain a vote. So they organized a scientific experiment. And the reason Obama's people were knocking at doors is because face-to-face contact, direct interaction, is the most effective way to change someone's mind. What you see here is a summary of hundreds of experiments that have been run in the US, in Europe, about the effectiveness of different campaign techniques. Door-to-door, phoning, emailing, postal mailing, social media. And what it shows is that if you want to change someone's mind, the best way to do it is to go and engage with that person face-to-face. That's why Barack Obama organized such a massive door-to-door campaign in 2012. That's why actually François Hollande organized such a campaign in 2012 as well, and I had the pleasure to be part of the team when Hollande won the election. Yes, I worked for Macron, I worked for Hollande as well. We can make anyone win an election, basically. That's one thing. The story I've been telling you is about America. America, it's a different country. They have more money in elections, they have more data in elections, and they have a different mentality. So the first time we came back to France and met with François Hollande's team and told them, you have to knock at doors. They looked at us and they told us, no. This works in the US because American people, they're very nice. They love to hug each other. And of course, in America, if you knock at doors, they open the door and they're very happy. But in France, no, we don't like that. We don't like that. And I'm telling this story because after Hollande's campaign, I was invited by the SPD in Berlin to explain them how we had imported Obama-style techniques in France. And they looked at me like this and they said, okay, it works in the US, it works in France because, you're strange people, but it will never work in Germany. Because, we don't like to open our doors. Well, good news for you. German people are nice, almost as nice as French people. And when you knock at a door in Germany, the door opens and you can have a conversation. And I've had a similar conversation in all the countries we've worked in Spain and Belgium, Switzerland, Italy. In Italy, we worked for someone running for mayor of Milan. And he told us, okay, it works in the US, it works in France, in Spain, Germany. Maybe it works in Italy, but in Milan, never. My point is that, of course it works in Milan. The idea that human interaction is at the core of politics, I believe, is a universal concept. At least it's a European concept. So that's the first thing is, this can be imported from the US, this idea of face-to-face interaction. But there's another problem, which is the data. In the US, there's a lot of data available. There's no privacy regulation, almost no privacy regulation, but it's completely different in Europe. But the good news is there are a lot of data in France. I'm going to show you a couple of maps. This one is Paris. This is the result of the first round of the French presidential election. Orange is Macron. So this is Paris divided in 1,000 neighborhoods, okay? And the color is who was first. But I could show you this for Milan, Barcelona, Berlin, Munich, or even a smaller city like Ludwigshafen in Rheinland-Pfalz. My point is that in Europe, we have amazing data sets that are now available that make it possible to build very powerful targeting model for political campaigns. And combining electoral data, combining demographic data, you can build an amazing model to find out exactly where your target voters are. And last year in France, in 2017, we had a presidential election and we had parliamentary elections. And for the first time, we, France, entered the future, in campaigning at least, in a sense that many, many candidates, Emmanuel Macron, but also many people running for office in small constituencies, running for parliament, used data and technology to better organize their campaign. And I have something to say. Germany did it as well, but you're still lagging behind France a little bit. You may have better cars, we have better campaigns. That may change in the future. Before concluding and letting the party start, I would like maybe to zoom on the campaign I had the pleasure to work for, which is Emmanuel Macron's campaign. And Macron's campaign is interesting because Macron started from zero. When he started En Marche in April 2016, he had no money, he had no member, he had no support from any political official, he had no campaign experience, and he had no party infrastructure. He had nothing. And yet, a year after that, he became president. So how did that happen? Disclaimer, he was lucky, okay? I mean, to start from zero and become French president, you have to be amazingly lucky. But that's not enough. He was amazingly smart at working on things he could control. And he was great at building an amazing political movement from zero. The way he did it is by starting early. The first thing. Macron launched En Marche in April 2016, but actually he started planning it in the summer of 2015. So it took 9 months to plan what would happen after the movement was launched. And what did Macron do when he launched the movement? He did something very simple. He listened. He organized an operation called La Grande Marche, the Great Walk, if you want. Macron's belief was that one of the reasons people do not trust politicians anymore has to do with the fact that people feel politicians do not understand what they go through, that politicians do not listen to them. So his answer is simple. Well, let's listen to French people. Let's knock at their door and listen to what they have to say so that we can build a diagnostic of the country, a real diagnostic of the country. So Macron asked every single new member of En Marche to go out of their comfort zone, go out of their neighborhood, and go across the country to ask 8 open questions. So I'm not going to go through all the questions in detail. I want to zoom on 2 of them, which I think are interesting. Question 3 and 4. What works in France? Don't say nothing, it's not true. And what doesn't work in France? We were amazed by the answers to those 2 questions. I'll give you one example. People were often saying, what works in France? Schools. What doesn't work in France? The education system. It sounds strange, right? Because it's the same thing, but it's not the same thing. Schools are the local institution next to you where you send your kids. You can physically visualize it. The system is something very strange, far away, that you don't understand. So this was very helpful for Macron's team when they were starting building his education program. Eventually, La Grande Marche, which was what started the movement, it was 300,000 doors knocked for 25,000 conversations. Each conversation lasted 15 minutes. I don't know if you can imagine having 25,000 conversations with a French person. I mean, it's a lot of work. And it was an amazing response to everyone who was criticizing Macron for being a newcomer in politics, because he had organized something that no other political parties have ever organized in France, and I believe in Europe. This listening campaign was the first time a political party has tried and successfully organized something like this. The other thing is, it was an amazing rehearsal of the final weeks of the campaign, because in April 2016, most parties were doing nothing, but Macron's volunteers, they were practicing. They were literally rehearsing for the rest of the campaign. And this operation also proved an amazing accelerator for the movement and to structure En Marche, and eventually led the movement to become stronger and stronger towards the election. I think I'm almost done, but I would like to leave you with a couple of ideas about campaigns. Very simple ideas. Campaigns used to be run by intuition, by communication gurus, who invented slogans, and sometimes they won the election, and people said, oh, they're geniuses, and sometimes they lost the election. And people were like, boo. But actually, in reality, you can run an amazing campaign and lose the election. Or you can run a very poor campaign and win the election. And Donald Trump is an amazing example of this. Trump's campaign, from my perspective as a campaign expert, was amazingly poorly organized. Hillary Clinton, on the contrary, was really well structured. I'm not saying there were not problems with Clinton's candidacy, there were, but from the operational perspective, she was very good. Well, the thing is, now the time of intuition in campaigns is over. You can actually find what works and what doesn't work during a campaign. And it started with Obama in 2008. Then it crossed the Atlantic with François Hollande in 2012. And actually, I believe it will continue. We had Macron, but I think Macron is not the last one. So I'll leave you with a question. Try to guess in which country the next Macron will rise. And I thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the event and the party. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
De rien.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liegey. If I want to become German Chancellor, can you make it possible? Yes or not?
I can help you, for sure. But again, I am not a magician. My promise to you is, with me, you will gain votes. But if you start at 10 percentage points, I won't be able to do much.
0%. We're
I
starting
cannot
with
bring
0.
that up to 4 or 5% maybe.
This is good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Give me a hand for Mr. Liegey. Thank you for having us.